Tyler Babby runs T Squared, a social media company that has launched a series called Social Recharge. Tyler and his team are running a workshop later this week for parents about how to navigate the online social media world with their kids. Tyler joins me now from Saskatchewan. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Thank you for having me.
Why are you hosting this discussion on social media for parents?
So our company deals with small business all across Saskatoon, helping them with their social media. We hear a lot about social media, how it affects people personally, obviously professionally, business-wise. So once a year, we like to host this event, which is called Social Recharge, which the core value is really about finding that time for self-care and also finding balance with technology. So this year, we've taken the topic of parenting and social media because it's something that kind of came out of last year's conversation. And so we've just expanded upon that with our friends from Aspire 2, which is a professional counseling service. And so that's what the roundtable discussion is going to be about.
So you mentioned that it's a roundtable discussion. Who will be guiding the conversation?
So Elizabeth and Giselle from Aspire 2 will be guiding primarily the bulk of the conversation, especially when it comes down to how to navigate things from the sort of mental health perspective. And then myself and Tyler, who's the other T Squared, will be there as a resource for some of the sort of more technical things, sort of like around questions people might have about the ins and outs of how to deal with like specific things on social media. So I think the combination is kind of interesting, and hopefully there's a lot of resources that people will have at this event to get what they need to have some thoughtful discussions with their family after the event.
About those discussions, what are some of the major concerns that parents are facing with regards to social media and their kids?
You know, I think there are some of the things that they deal with kind of in everyday life. So it comes down to, usage, setting boundaries, instilling in children that coming to parents is the safest place to have conversations, bullying, kind of a lot of the big topics, right? Like anything that a 12-year-old would deal with going through school and just, figuring life out, right?
Absolutely, and you mentioned technology. I know some parents are struggling to keep up with their kids with using these devices. So how are you going to craft that conversation around technology?
So what we're hoping to do is, I think the really interesting thing with the social media conversation with parenting is that typically kids have a better understanding technologically of social media as a whole than parents do, but parents hopefully have a better understanding of how to process emotions and do certain other things, right? So what we're hoping to do is give parents a little bit more understanding into how the technology works, but also give them some of the resources to have those conversations with their children just in an open and candid way so that they can have some productive conversations.
It's important for that productive conversation. What kinds of frustrations are you hearing from parents about social media and their kids?
I think, and this is probably a question that will be better answered at the event because this is something that Elizabeth and Giselle see more in their practice. But a lot of the topics we've discussed as a group is around boundary setting. So, when can you use social media? When does it have to get turned off for bed? And how do you do that in a way that it doesn't feel like you're taking away power from your child, right? Because that's always a struggle as a parent to understand how to give them freedom, but also still parent, right? So.
I mean, it is a challenge to balance those two. So maybe what are a few of your tips for parents if they're trying to tackle this problem with social media with regards to their kids?
Totally. I think the biggest tip is just the conversation piece, right? In discussions with Elizabeth and Giselle and the other Tyler, a lot of it comes down to every family is different. So every family is going to deal with it in a slightly different way. And that's why this event is hosted as a roundtable discussion. It's less sort of a presentation or sort of a lecture, and it's more sort of like some guided questions that we're going to go through in small groups and large groups, and we're just going to spend a lot of time sharing and learning from other people's experiences, and also just finding constructive ways as a whole to maybe like figure out a few things together, because a lot of this territory is very new, so there isn't a lot of documentation or a lot of research that has hard and fast answers. So that's why we've structured this in the roundtable discussion.
It is a learning process. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Tyler Babby owns T Squared Social, and he's hosting a free event to the public on March 28th from 2 to 4 at the refinery in Saskatoon.